everybody?
Everybody caught you putting your Carmex on. See that? Hey everyone, how
Good
are you? I
morning.
hope you guys are doing great. We
Yes,
are back. We are back, and you know what we're doing. First thing we got to do is we got to share the stream. I want you to like and share the stream. Please hop on. We got some great things to talk about to get us started for the month. That's what I'm doing. Have you shared it too, Ryan?
I'm doing it right now. As always, we like to welcome you to By Any Means podcast. I am your host, Ryan Jones,
And
and
I am Sharita. I'm excited to be here. First, Ryan, do we have any events coming up? I think we got a bookmaking party.
we sure do. Let's see here. So, on July 16th, every other month on the third Thursday, we have our community kit making party from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And it's located at the Louisville Recovery Community Connection Center. And that address is 1700 South 5th Street, Louisville, Kentucky. It is a family event, so come on out and join us as we embark on making sure our community is safe and the best way possible with these tools. Also, our next episode on July 23rd, we always have a theme. We always have guests come on, and so we're gonna be joined by a birth doula, Jasmine Furman, and a deaf doula, Darnell Walker. And so, listen, you don't want to miss it. Make sure you check us out every other Thursday at 1 p.m. for By Any Means podcast for a good conversation. And we always say, grab some lunch and come and talk with us. So, so Sharita, how you doing today? Are you on mute?
Absolutely, I was on mute.
Okay.
I'm like, let me back up. But that was a loaded question. What I was saying was, I'm okay. I'm okay today. Um, but I think what we decided to do, you guys, today is to have this dialogue. I got my glasses on, so I know I normally take them off, but I have some inflammation in my body. So let me be like 100% transparent. Um, Inflammation, and it's impacting my eye. So my eye is swollen over here. So I need y'all not to be looking at that. I got these bifocals on, so you can't see it for real. But if I took the bifocals off, then you would see the swelling in my eye. But I have some inflammation in my body, and I'm addressing it. But I think it is timely as we start this uh, honest conversation, right? Um, Today, as we lead into, we have the themes for the month, and this month we are talking about transitions, transformation, and grief. Like Ryan said, we have our birth doula partner coming from Grammy's place, right? Um, who's going to be joining us. And then we have Darnell, who is a deaf doula, who's going to be joining us for that conversation as well. And it's timely because I don't think we talk about transitions, right, a lot. I think when we talk about grief, when we talk about transitions, we often talk about it as, it's death, right? Someone's passing away. Um, so when Ryan, when you ask me how am I doing, I am feeling a lot. I'll start with that. I'm feeling a lot. There's a lot And although I'm hopeful, I'm grateful, all of those things matter. I carry both grief and joy constantly.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll leave it with that. How are you showing up today, Ryan?
Um, how I'm feeling actually goes with today's topic, the space between and honoring the transition before transformation, and uh, even just mentally and physically, when we change and transition, it happens to our bodies, it
Mhm.
happens to our minds, our emotions, and so it is to trigger and in those spaces, um, and so just navigating the in between. So
Yeah, the space in between. When we talk about, so let's just jump right into it.
okay.
When we talk about living in between in space and transition, right? What what does transition mean to you? When you hear transition, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
That is it's a process of shifting.
Mm.
So there's something that is being birthed, as well as something that has to die.
Mm.
And whether it's thoughts, whether it's feelings, whether it's emotions, even actions, there's a transition, there's a shift that has to take place. And so when I think about transition, I think of something that's moving, that's
Mm.
progressing.
Mm.
And even in regression as well too, there's a transition that is happening.
Okay. So can you share? We have some questions that we'll be throwing back and forth to each other to have this natural dialogue, you guys. Um, this is a bit of a different podcast because a lot of people don't see these things together. They don't see harm reduction and all these conversations we have. They don't see how it links. It is interesting because harm reduction has a lot to do with grief and loss, so it's just interesting that we rarely talk about what that really looks like in real life. um can you share where are you genuinely in transition, just based on your definition of what that could look like, and share that with our guests. Please like and share our stream, y'all. Quit playing with us.
Okay.
Like, stop playing with us. Now y'all know we here every other Thursday. What do we need to do to make
Okay.
sure you're on here?
I would say for myself, um, I'm still in. It's a couple of things that are actually transitioning in my personal life, that also happens in my work life, and my social life. And so there's a big transition that is taking place. There are people that I've had to separate from, and people that I've had to transition
Mm.
into being around, and again, in all aspects of my life, though there is a shifting that is taking place, even along with the way that I show up.
Mm.
There's been a transition and that as well. And it actually is a good thing, because the biggest tests and trials, they come to those that can endure to the end,
Mhm.
and I'm willing to endure to the end, even though that there is ups and downs. And yesterday, actually, my daily devotion was talking about, yea, the Psalms 23, yea, though I walk through the
Mhm.
valley. That valley experience is a shift.
Yes.
It is a shift, and it's not going to say that it's always going to be roses and daisies and and all of that pretty stuff. But even in that ugly stuff, it actually is transitioning, because if you're able to endure it, you'll be able to see that there is more on the other side, and
Hmm.
that you have to, but there has to be something that has to die off in order for the birth to take place.
Yes.
Even with a mother,
Hmm.
sometimes really in that birthing process, there are many mothers that have had to base almost die in order for the baby to come forth.
Well, we do, right? We
Hmm.
go through some sort of we do go through some sort of death. There was a comment on here that I had been sitting with. How we spend so much time, right? That was that one of those comments celebrating transformation, right? Oh, I graduated. Oh, I got a promotion. Oh, I got all these things going on, right? We often skip over though the
Yeah,
cost of what that transformation looks like. Oh, I'm
yeah.
doing all of these great things, but we don't sit with and allow the transformation to
Hmm.
really sit with us. What does that mean? What does it cost us? Even in birth, and we're gonna talk through that with our birth doula coming on. But
Hmm.
what does that cost? Becoming a mother at 22, 21, and 22 cost me a lot that I didn't even realize it was gonna cost. I thought I was just gonna have a baby and that was it. Like I was so excited to have a baby. I had no idea what a baby meant for me, right? So I didn't get the opportunity to embrace the transition, although it was a celebration. Um, when I think about, there was some questions that we had down to ponder and think over, right? And I think about there's an unexpected hope that came with the transitions in my life, even the transition in womanhood, right? I'm going through transitions with perimenopause is a significant transition in women's middle-aged women who we get the opportunity to live longer and we get to see how our body changes and sitting with that, because what I had to realize is the harder that I fought a transition from happening, the more that my body and my mind, my psyche, my brain, the harder it was for me to walk through it because I couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept that this new space was coming from me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that is, again, a lot of times we don't address what that really looks like. What does that mean for us when we're talking about it? Transition also means letting go. When I talk about what's that space between the transition,
Hmm.
is it easy to let go?
Yeah. Sometimes you got to pick and choose what to let go,
What to let go, right?
who
What
to
to
let
let
go.
go? And is it easy though?
Wow.
Is it easy to look at something and be like, this is dying now, right? I want to let's think about something
Or
because
it's already dead.
it's already dead. Oh, it's already dead. I want you to think about something, right? Because I know
Hmm.
these Lola's gonna get on me. Lola would get on me for this, but I'm like, okay, the placenta. How long do I really keep it, right? Now, the placenta is part of the birthing process.
Okay.
And I think about how people actually use pieces of it because there's some healing components in it. But how long do we hold on to it? Because at some point, right? It's like, what am I going to do with it? But then I took it a step further and I said, what about the umbilical cord? Because I started thinking through, like, as we prepare for this conversation, I'm thinking through, like, let it go. What if we kept the attachment to the mom and the
Hmm.
baby, that umbilical cord? Can you imagine? How old are you, Ryan?
I'm 36.
Imagine being 36 and and this is to call in the space. So I want you to sit with me.
Okay.
But I want you to think about if your umbilical cord, shit, umbilical cord. I want you to think about right now in this moment, and I know you're about to say, "Oh,
Okay.
imagine if the umbilical cord you kept it attached. Where would you be here? Let's start there
Wow. Yeah, I don't think that it was meant to live for so long.
because life moved forward, didn't it? Your beautiful mom, right, is in your heart now in
Yeah.
spirit. But imagine, and I think about that with my mom.
Hmm.
I think about that with anyone whose mom has transitioned. And I'm like, what if? What if we didn't? And I don't think our moms wanted us to even do that. But I want you to think about when we think about holding on to stuff. I want us to get to the root of what attachment looks like, what
Yeah.
a pushing back against transition would look like is if you start at a very basic level, which is birth. If we did not have that breaking, if they didn't cut that cord,
Hmm.
you wouldn't be able to become who you are today.
Right.
I wouldn't, because let's look at the ones who are still, if I was still attached, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't know the people. I wouldn't have grown. And I would probably have way more defects than
Yeah.
what really happened in my life. Because think about there is nothing allowing me to now step into who I'm meant to be.
Right.
What does
And
that do for you? Hearing it.
and even just thinking about that, there there are things that's in our lives that are meant to be only for a season, and that's it. That's it. It was meant to be a teaching tool, and
Mm-hmm.
you were meant to go through it, endure it, and persevere through it, but then also walk away with something from it to be able to carry on. And even in just the everything has a preparation. Something has to
Mm-hmm.
take place before you can move.
Mm-hmm.
The stoplight, it has to go through. You're at stop already.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a transit before you could go to the green. You got to slow down first.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going from green, where you're going at a fast pace. Everything's going good. Everything
Mm-hmm.
is, peaches and cream. But then there's something that takes place. There's a roadblock, and you got to slow it down some. You got to take even more precaution than
Mm-hmm.
what you already were doing, while you were in the green. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's a season that comes and everything around you stops.
Mm.
Everything around you stops. And so, before, if there's something that's in front of you that's blocking you, in order for that to be moved out of the way, there has to be some type of energy that has to be exuded in order to be able to get that roadblock out of the way, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
somebody, whether it's something, whether it's some place, whomever, whatever it is, it has to move so that way you can get back to green again.
Mm-hmm. Because that's how we move through life. I think
Yeah.
as we as we continue to talk about it, I think it naturally leads into talking about grief
Hmm.
because like you said, I mean, everything's not meant. I think what happens is people get afraid because the weight of grief is so hard.
And it
Um,
can become unmanageable.
it can.
It can. Yeah.
However, it is supposed to be heavy. This is
It-
where I think it's the toughest, and I want people to lean in. So when it comes to substance use, um, what I think me and Matt LaRocco, one of my friends in this work, what we often talk about, and he really taught me, which helped me in my clinical spaces many years ago, was the relationship to substances that we have.
okay.
Very harm reduction way of thinking about substance use. What is your relationship to it? And what I do realize, which is why hey
What's up,
Asher,
Ashley?
uh, what we what we don't think about is that the repast of a funeral, what's often there
Hmm.
that's accepted. Alcohol, right?
Yeah.
It's a what it does is it's a depressant. It allows us to, you know, kind of dull the pain. It allows us to shift and look differently at it. It allows us to manage it. Doesn't mean it's right, wrong, or whatever. It is what it is. This is the
Hmm.
chemical makeup of alcohol. The same with marijuana. A lot of people will smoke cannabis. Now, there's other substances happening at repass, but they're not as socially acceptable. Nobody's walking around like, hey, y'all, I'm about to go out back and pop them perks real quick, or shoot a little heroin, or shoot up a little bit. Like, I'm sorry, to all
Yeah.
my people that's using other things, but just letting you know when you go to a repast, there's a couple of substances that are really common for people to use. And I want us to think about that because grief is heavy. Grief is heavy.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't think grief is attached to, you know, positive outcomes in our life is tripped
Yeah.
out. The fact that we don't connect it, right? So it naturally talks about that space in between holds grief.
Mm.
A lot of people have this is a question I don't think we had on there, but I've been thinking about it.
Okay.
What was your when you think about your upbringing, right? Because you grew up very involved in religious spaces, right? And spiritually found having spiritual foundations, right?
Hmm.
From your childhood, what was grief? What did you think grief? Not what Ryan knows grief to be now as an
Hmm.
adult, as an adult with life experiences. But growing back into your childhood, what do you remember about grief? And let's talk about it a little bit.
Um, I actually experienced grief at an early age, actually, because um, my father,
Mm,
he's still alive, actually,
mm,
but he wasn't there. And I had to actually grieve the feelings that I had about who I was because um, my dad lived close by and never
mm,
seen him.
mm,
And so I had to, I've grieved several things and several feelings and thoughts um, just from that like I said, who I am, where I come
mm,
from, and who I belong to,
mm,
and that connection. Even though that I was connected with my family, but I grieved that feeling because I saw other boys with their fathers and their
mm.
connection, their relationship that I did not have. Now, yes, I was able to, and I was grateful to have the relationship that I have with my grandfather,
Mhm.
but there still was
Papa, y'all. Papa,
uh,
papa.
Papa, uh, I had to have that, and which helped me along the way, but I still deal with that grief of, dang, where, why? what I do.
I think that's a very mature way,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna challenge you because I'm about to make you go way back because you have that maturity with you. But I want to tell you all this, Ryan, Papa. How old is Papa now? Don't be mad at us, Papa, because we celebrate our elders being able to make it to these ages.
Well, he actually told them the on the last episode when he was with us, that
So
he
how
just
old?
recently turned 78.
So Ryan has the privilege to be raised in around elders, which oftentimes give you a different lens of wisdom. So my
Hmm.
experience with grief early on is a bit different. I didn't understand that I was grieving over some of
Okay.
the same situations. You know, I always tell people I don't have daddy issues because I had three, right?
Okay.
It didn't occur to me that I still grieve the fact that I didn't have my biological father raising me.
Hmm.
Um, when it comes to death and dying, as I think about it back in my childhood, young, there's a lot of demonstration of how to be strong.
Hmm.
And what came with any trial or tribulation was solution.
Yeah.
This happened, so we're going to do this. This happened, so we're going to do this. Not really understanding that there's a process in a space where I can sit and land and be vulnerable and allow myself to
Yeah.
heal. Now, that to me, although I was able to conceptualize, and then on top of that, I was in theater. When I like to tell people the privilege of being a theater brat, a theater kid, and a trained thespian from early on, and what we see in our celebrities, which is probably why I have my heart goes to childhood actors. Not because let me tell y'all something, Mr. Renako Jahi, he didn't play that.
Okay.
So I don't have no traumatic experiences from my childhood theater days. Thank God. However, I say there was a privilege. You know, I was in therapy talking about how I got to experience breakups. I got to
Mhm.
experience death of loved ones. I got to experience how to handle trauma on stage. I
Okay.
was an actress, so I had roles. I had roles where I had to experience all these feelings and emotions, and I had a place to. I had to research because being a good actor, being a
Gotcha.
good person, you have to know what that person is feeling. I'll never forget playing Lady in Red, uh, the for colored girls who considered suicide when the rainbow wasn't enough.
Hmm.
I remember doing that play in college. I remember going to Alabama State University and working with one of the best directors there on how to center this role. I had to play this character, and if you remember the movie, because Michael Easley was the father who dropped his children out the window and the mom screaming for them. You talk about someone who had to center and feel the heaviness of that. And I look back on that and be like, wow, I had to learn all those feelings, but outside of a stage, how I show up,
Hmm.
how I process grief, I don't know how. It took me getting into my 40s to say, I don't I don't know how to be vulnerable to feelings of uncertainty and sadness and fear and transition and and death and grief. And I had to learn it. I had to understand it differently because as a child, I had a place to learn it. So it's a different way of understanding. I didn't realize, like you're saying that, and I thought back to my dad, and I'm like, yeah, I was absolutely grieving. Maybe that's why I was trying to find relationships early on. Maybe that's why I was with so many different people at one point in my life because I was searching and didn't realize.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what grief does. When we talk about grief, we talk about what we are grieving, but what comes up with that? What comes up with grief? The heaviness of it.
Yeah. And even with that, the question that comes to mind is, where can you find the hope in it? Where can you find where like in the middle of the transition,
Hmm.
in the middle of it all, the good, bad, and indifferent. Where can you find hope? And even just thinking about death. I did experience death early on. I seen it. I've been to a lot of funerals. Okay, cool. But when it's close to
Mm.
home to you, there's a different kind of weight that comes. And two influential people in my life. The first was my grandmother,
Mm.
my mother's mom, and I literally watched her take her last breath.
Mm.
And that was traumatic for me. That was very traumatic for me.
Mm.
And but then to turn around and about 20 years later, almost, I experienced watching my mother take her last breath
Mm.
before my very eyes. And the weight that came, I mean, I know the weight that came as an adult.
Right.
I hit the floor.
Right.
They had to pick me up out of the floor, and even even dealing with life, the experience of the transition and grieving, transitioning, coming out of addiction.
Mm.
It was a lot. It was
Yeah.
a lot of whoa moments. Like, okay, hold on, this is a different kind of weight that I've never felt. I was already suppressing the feelings, the weight, the grief, before now, which is why I was in that posture. But then to now have to change and transition into a new
Hmm.
mindset, into new people around, into
Hmm.
new places to go to, into new environments to interact in, and then
Yeah.
a new me, because now I can't show up how I was and with my addictive self into the to the new destination.
Hmm.
And that's where a lot of times, people not being able to express it or let really experience the release, because they're trying to carry over, and those things that were in the last season, there's a lot of things that can't go into the new season because
Right.
it doesn't apply.
Right. As you were talking about that, and I was looking at all the list of things that we grieve, everything you touched on.
Yeah.
We don't create the spaces. You asked a great question. Where does the hope come? So what I've learned, and in me gaining a new perspective about grief, right? Even how I show up when grief is attached to dying is is how I've embraced who I am. So I had to go through a grieving process of old identities for me. You know, the version of me that people see that you've met even is not the version I was 10 years ago. That version is just as important. The version of me 20 years ago is just as important. However, the version that you see today is a very different version of who I was, and I'm happy about that. I can't imagine being in certain positions, being the older version of myself, but it took me a minute to get there. It took me seeing again. I have privilege of theater, and the cool thing about theater is that there's always an finale, and I get to play that. I have practice in seeing how difficult it is to get to the finale. So everything I go through, I'll never forget the hard conversation my daughter had with me in my therapist's office. I always bring it up because why not? But she made some very hard statements in a therapy conversation where she was so hurt by decisions I made that She actually said I was dead to her at one point.
Mm, that was a good
And I
question.
did like this. I was like, and I was like, I don't want you. And look how you looking like, what? Why would you be smiling? And I said, I'm not smiling. Let me stop. I
Hmm.
said, I needed to hear that. That version of me was not in a healthy space.
Yeah.
That version of me is a hurt person that was not dealing with a hurt. That version of me hurt her. And what I can look at today and say, I'm not that version of me. And this version of me can say, I apologize. No but, no if, no and, no nothing. I apologize. Yes, aggressively. Because I've grieved that woman. I love that, Sharita. I also love who I am today. So
Yeah.
that version of me. And the cool thing about living life like that on this side is that the version I was even yesterday,
Yeah.
the tweaks that I make overnight, I'm
Yeah.
okay with it because I learned through my process of grieving a whole season of my life has
Hmm.
taught me how to be hopeful for each day, each 24 that I get, because I know that I'm not guaranteed at 24. So I'm like, good. I don't have to stay stuck. That's why you see
Right.
the excitement. That's the hope. But how do I get there? Now, there's a question. I didn't see it, but there's
Yes,
a question.
it said, is it Pumpkin Pie Coleman? Hey, Pumpkin.
Hey,
Uh,
Pumpkin.
you remember Pumpkin from
Yes.
our excursion? Okay.
Yes.
So she said, is it common for childhood grief to be so bad
Mm.
that your adult self blocks it out and don't remember?
Absolutely. And Ryan can speak from lived experience as well. Like, and I want you to, Ryan. I'm gonna say this, Pumpkin. First of all, thank you for asking that question. I appreciate it. We want people to be able to share questions. We will stop
Yeah.
and do that, especially when we're talking about topics this heavy. I will throw this out and I want Ryan to really talk about it from that lived experience because he has some things he's experienced.
Hmm.
Um we often don't address, especially in our communities of color, Black communities, Latino communities, how trauma manifests in our bodies. We don't talk about how trauma shows up in our brain. We don't talk about how post traumatic stress disorder
That's
actually
exactly
shows
what I was gonna do.
right, right. We don't talk about it, so it's foreign. It's a foreign concept. But what you described right there, that is the clearest definition. And no, I am not diagnosing anyone. We are
Hmm.
not diagnosing folks on here. You absolutely want to talk to a professional, but when you look at what post traumatic stress disorder does to
Hmm.
folks, you may not be diagnosed with it because it hasn't come back to your remembrance, but what happens is that trauma eventually will be triggered and then it comes right back to the frontal lobe. It's like it's sitting back here. I always call it the file cabinet of hidden thoughts. One day something triggers and then boom, it's right up in front of you. So the trauma is sitting back. It's
Yeah.
not post-traumatic stress disorder yet because people in that with that diagnosis normally have started experiencing the symptoms of seeing reliving the trauma, having a trauma response. It takes some work. So Brian, I want to pass it on to you to expound.
I definitely agree with what you were saying, and that's actually what I was going to bring up. Because again, especially if it's not treated, if it's untreated, it will continue to
Manifest. It's gonna be
it's gonna keep, and then even in those moments that things are triggered, we may not know how to respond. We're
Mhm.
gonna, I ain't gonna say may not know, we're gonna respond in an inappropriate way.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
I
it's
did.
natural.
And it is because again, just in our black and brown community, what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Oh yeah.
It ain't no going to talk to a therapist or a counselor. And in my case, it was going to talk to the pastor, but the pastor ain't experienced that before.
Right.
And so having with the treatment of it, and treatment can it comes in many forms. Let's just say that
Mhm.
treatment can come in many forms.
Mhm.
Whether it is talking to a therapist, whether it is having a life coach, or
Mhm.
having someone to an advocate for you,
Mhm.
to be able to help break down that again, even in this road and walk of sobriety. It actually has the step 5. You got to go back,
Mhm.
and that was very hard for me.
A lot of people
That
return to
was
use.
actually it was actually triggering to the point
Mhm.
where I said, don't worry about it. Let me go try to taste again,
Mhm.
because it got that hard. But in order to, my grandfather says a lot, you can't euthanize what you don't recognize.
I
And
remember him
so
saying
that if you can't recognize it, if things had not come up, then you wouldn't be able to recognize it and recognize that something is wrong. Something is there's a mishap. There's a roadblock. There's something that's hindering me from going forward, because I'm having these thoughts of I remember when,
that. Mhm.
or I remember that,
Mm.
or that when even like, we could talk about it even in like domestic violence situations, even hearing a gunshot,
Mhm.
even just someone raising their hand or getting too close to you, it
Mhm.
can bring back and trigger so much in those moments that the person may not know that they are bringing that up for you.
Even this conversation. You
Mm.
know, you came in and said, "Is it common for childhood grief to be so bad that your adult self blocks it?" Listen, a conversation like this, and we could put a disclaimer there. And before we, bring on our guest next week, we could create a little disclaimer that this conversation may be triggering.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's going to trigger the actual thoughts. How many of you all who are watching this and who will watch this podcast, how many of you all have experienced a situation where a conflict happened, and you reacted physically quickly without
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it? Or you ran, you went into fight, flight, your reflex,
Mm-hmm.
right? How many of you all have done that and was right?
Okay.
But you haven't been able to connect the dots. You're just like, I know something happened.
Mm-hmm.
Or how many people have experienced where their stomach started to hurt real bad? Or if you're listening to this right now and you start to have a headache, or your stomach starts to bother you,
Tears start to well
hands
up.
start to well up, your hands start getting sweaty, and you're
Ooh.
like, what is going on? It's triggering a physiological response. Psychosomatic is what we call it. Paying attention to your body allows you to see, or you start to feel pains in certain ways. For me, I start to have the urge to go smoke. Uh-oh, we're talking about like right now. I can say that. I want to smoke because we're talking about things that are a little bit heavier. Doesn't mean that I don't need to talk about it. It actually means that this is probably something I need to explore.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage folks as you listen, as you start to think of questions. Maybe you have a question, you're not quite ready to put it there. This is not a jab. I want people to walk away. Our goal, honestly, y'all, is to walk away for you to reflect and think. That's the beginning of harm reduction, building a relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pumpkin, for coming on here saying it. But Pumpkin has a relationship, one of the hosts on here, right? So, with that being said, there was some trust there, but don't feel any type of way because you didn't say it. Because
Yeah.
maybe your next step is to throw something in the DM. Ryan is the one who will end up checking it, right? Until we get someone else in the row, he may see your question, right? But I want you to not run away from the discomfort. If we want to get to hope, you got to go through the discomfort.
Got to.
You got
Got
to
to.
go through. One of my pastors, Pastor Ruth, from the old church that I used to attend. I never forget. She talked about.
I
Oh,
love you too.
she talked about. Thank you for doing it.
Yes.
She talked about pruning. I don't
Mm.
like to plant. because I kill plants. I'm sorry,
I don't have
all
I
you
don't have a
plant
green
lovers.
thumb either. Don't feel
Yeah,
bad.
I don't have a green thumb, blue thumb, no thumb. Um, but she talked about the process of these plants, and she had a visual. I'm a visual learner, so she had this visual up on the screen, and I'll never forget this because it was one of the things that helped me walk through transition in my life. She showed where her plant was. Oh, it was. She had to prune it. She had to cut. She had to get it, take off the dead leaves. She had to the branches. It did not look pretty. Oh my goodness! By the time that next going into the next summer, it was so beautiful.
Mm.
But she focused on we got to go through the pruning. We have to actually go through that phase, which is why I don't do well with plants because anytime I talk to a plant lover, a plant person who actually takes care of and bring them back to life. I have a friend who can take a dead plant, and I mean when I say bring it back to life,
Oh, for real.
I know the person to go to. So I'm like, but there's a process with that. You have to
Hmm.
sit through that process. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about grieving old versions of ourselves. We're talking about grieving the child that we didn't get a chance to be. We're talking
Cause
about grieving, you know?
yeah, because and what actually comes to mind is The Walking Dead.
Mm,
If we don't understand how to maneuver and process and even just pick apart our lives, our
mhm,
engagement with ourselves, with other people, with past, present, and future things. We'll be the walking dead. You'll be holding on to so much, so much. What's the song, Bag Lady? You're gonna be holding on to
a lot.
too many things that are going to drain you and deplete all the strength that you could be using to fight, that you could be using to gain and go forward and
Mhm.
progress. But because you're exerting all of your energy carrying everything from 10, 20, 2 years, a month, days ago, and
Mhm.
it is literally dragging you down.
Yeah.
That's what really I even just it's been popping up throughout this whole conversation,
Mhm.
because there's literally, and you can, those that may be whatever city that you're in, look at some of the people, you can consider them as the walking dead
Mhm.
because of their of whatever took place before now. That in between space that we're talking about was not treated, it was not cultivated, it was not irrigated, it wasn't
All the things.
nothing. It wasn't nothing.
And it's not a bad, so it's not, we're not even encouraging you to like let people go. This is where harm reduction meets that,
Right.
right? It's is learning that in these moments, once I realize and I recognize that, is that I have to have a certain set of boundaries. Because what I do understand about not allowing yourself to cut off and release the death, the pieces that are dead. So the umbilical cord, the dead pieces of a plant. We don't prune, if we don't release it, if we don't let go, is that it will then drain you. If we don't release, so you don't let go of past traumas. When I say that we are grieving old identities, old versions of ourselves, it's not that I said we moved on and I forgot. I've embraced that person wholly. I understood what was happening in my life as that person I was, and I carry her with me in this new way, right? It's not holding on, is learning to process and identify the spaces for it. But there's a catch to this. What does harm reduction look like when we apply it to ourselves? It looks like boundaries sometimes. It looks like asking for help. It looks like therapy. It looks like coming in saying, I only got 40% in me today, so I can only give 40%. I only got 20% in me today, so I can only give 20%. It doesn't look like I can't do nothing,
Right. Right.
but it looks like, what can I do? right?
Hmm.
It looks like being authentic, being honest to who you are, checking in with yourself.
Yeah.
It looks like if I'm using substances, understanding what is it that I'm working through. Is this substance defeating the purpose or is it helping me?
Hmm.
No, it's not you going and saying, oh, I'm addicted or I'm dependent. It's not
Right.
you labeling yourself. It's
No.
literally saying, what is my relationship? Okay, I want to smoke right now. What is happening? Is this something I should probably talk to my therapist about? And this is an example. Is this something I should probably talk to my therapist about? Yeah, I probably should. Let me take a quick note. Let me do a voice note real quick and say, my next session, I'm going to bring this up because I recognize. Not, oh my God, I'm smoking. I'm a terrible person. Oh, I want to go have a drink. I need to, oh my God, I want to smoke. I want to shoot up. I want to do this. No, it's, let me examine this a little bit. What can
Hmm.
I do so the next time my relationship looks different? This is where harm reduction meets grief. You want to know how. It's where are you going to start meeting yourself
Hmm.
so that you can go through these transitions and be okay. I said I'm in many transitions. What am I leaving? I am leaving about 5 things on my list. I have a little thing that I do on my phone, and then I have a quiet room, and I have a gym bag. I'm really connected to my ancestors. A lot of people don't know that work about me, and I'm giving you an example. This is intentional. And when I'm trying to deal with something that's unresolved, that's coming up, that's touched something that happened maybe years ago,
Hmm.
I examine it and I reflect on it and then I move forward. I figure out what's the next step, right? It's not an easy process. Sometimes that involves crying, sometimes that involves anger, and it involves me taking a notebook and cussing because I do like a word dump, like because I'm a writer. So I'll write every and I like F bombs a lot. So you'll see it in cursive, you'll see it in this really pretty handwriting, you'll see all kind of stuff that I do because what I've realized is that the Sharita I am today, almost 50, I hold a lot of things in my body and my body is starting to show up. I'm swelling up. Arthritis is showing up. I'm becoming ill and my mornings are slower. My body hurts. So because my body is holding a lot of the that I carry, I have to be kind to myself. Can I fix everything? Absolutely not. Do I want to? No, because I ain't God.
Right.
So that's not my space. I can do what I can though.
Yeah.
What is something that you are either leaving as we wrap up this portion about grief that you're leaving or because like I said, I have a list. Y'all would be here for another hour. Um, or that
No.
you can offer for that wrapping up of grief for folks.
One thing that I would definitely suggest is to um, leave yourself room to
Mhm,
grieve.
mhm. That's a good one.
Leave yourself room to grieve. I can attest to as well. I hold a lot of things in, and my head will get to hurting now. I hold a lot of things in, too much stuff. My IBS will start kicking in. I
Mhm.
hold things in,
The
and
body.
now I find myself at my nose, my nose is spread from ear to ear. You
Mhm.
know, and you'll see that's why the wrinkles will start
Yep.
to come because I'm holding so much in, and I'm trying to show up as my authentic self, but I can't because it's going all in there. And so I have been intentionally giving and setting aside my own space and
Yes.
time. Even in my apartment, I have my own little prayer space, but I also have my own space where I sit and I say nothing. And
Yes.
there's nothing on. All you can hear is the. I live by the. You can hear the cars going past. You can hear
Mhm.
the birds and everything. You can hear that stuff, but everything else is silent. I
Yeah.
have to. I have to intentionally shut down sometimes so that way I can process really with that in between space.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna offer this to you, Ryan, because I know that I think a lot of people do this. Your authentic self is exactly who you are.
Right.
What I hear is you want to show up in your balcony. We can't
Hmm.
always show up in our balcony. And
Yeah.
that is the conflict, okay? Like I would love to show up every day like, yay, yay, yay. I have a big personality and I'm an extrovert.
Hmm.
But me showing up authentically is saying, I'm not in a good place today.
Yeah.
Me showing up authentically is saying that I'm really struggling right now. Me showing up authentically is saying that, hey, I'm still hurting from an incident that happened.
Hmm.
Not, I want to show up authentically like this. That's not authentic. So giving that and giving that to you because I think more people feel like that. They're like, authentic is me showing you that I'm happy. No, authentic is saying, this is how I'm showing up today. Um, we are getting closer to the end. I'm gonna ask Ryan, talk to Ryan, you guys, because with these doulas coming on next week, I mean, 2 weeks, I really think we might need an additional 15 minutes. And I'm gonna say this: if you guys get in that chat and we see questions, either on my end, even if you come to our personal chats, we're gonna talk about
Hmm.
it. Because if we need
Yeah.
to extend it an additional 15 minutes, because it's an interesting dynamic to have two people who are doulas. And just to throw this out here, a couple of years ago, I was deciding on mentorship and being a life person. I don't like coach,
Okay.
but what I did come up with was life doula. And it was because I saw Darnell's, started following him. And I was like, wow, being a life doula. And we'll talk more about that. But I want us to go ahead and start the transition out because I think, like I said, we're preparing for a bigger conversation. It's very new to our spaces of harm reduction. It's
Hmm.
not something that we have done. And it's a concept that's pretty foreign to all of us, including me. The only reason I know about it is because I started following Donnell long ago.
Right.
Uh, but in preparation for that, we want people to think about what is it that you want to learn.
Hmm.
Okay. What is it that you really want to learn? What questions are you carrying when you think about a death doula and a life doula,
Hmm.
right? A birth doula. What questions comes up, and what does death teach us about living? What questions would you have for Darnell? Because we're gonna have a few questions, but what I really want to do is create space for what Pumpkin did, and hope that people can actually do that. Is submit questions.
Hmm.
But I'm gonna put it on my page, Ryan. A lot of people tend to engage with my page, and I know you have your mornings. Maybe throwing that out there, telling people get into my DM, let me know if you have any questions, so we can add that to the list. And if we find we got a few questions, we will extend the time so that people can feel like they're being heard. And you never know, we might actually hop on real quick physically if you would like to. Um,
Okay.
Ryan has this thing he does, y'all, that I like. He has like a question that he closed out. So um, I think I want to pick one of the questions that was on his thing for him to
Okay.
think about. Um, and then he could do the same. But I want you to do the closing reflection, Brian. So if you want me to go first, and then I'll ask you yours so
Okay.
you can close us out.
All right. That's cool.
So what question you want to throw out for me? An easy one.
Where have you found unexpected hope?
I found unexpected hope in the chaos. I found it in the transitions. I found that when a lot of things are all spinning together, it's when I'm sitting on the porch at night listening, like you said, to the quiet, because quiet gets loud. And I'm like, okay, I'm about to give birth. Something big is about to happen because everything is coming together and colliding right now. Thank you for that question because that's a great question.
Yeah.
For you, for you, Ryan, as you close out for us, damn, I wanted to. Okay. What are you choosing to carry forward?
Choosing to carry forward strength. Um, even in the transition, I have found actually unexpected strength that I did not know that I actually possess. The transition will do that for you.
Mhm.
So as we transition out, listen, this has been amazing. This has actually got my wheels turning, and we hope that we achieved our goal and turn your wheels too. Even as we said before, even if you would like to just talk, if you would like to, you have questions, you may have comments, you may have things that you want to share, and guess what? We want to hear it. And so, listen, go and tap in, like and share this with somebody that may need to experience this. And in some capacity, we all do. And so, listen, we love you here at By Any Means Podcast. I am your host, Ryan.
And I'm Sharita. See you
Have
guys next in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. See you then.